All right, hello everybody. This is Conversations with Mr. P for my middle school students, and we have Dr. Will Campbell here. Will, when did you earn your doctorate?
Almost.
Almost, okay.
Almost, Dr. Campbell. I've completed all the coursework through Liberty University.
Okay.
Accepted his latest position as superintendent. All the coursework, once I finish the dissertation, then I will officially be Dr. Campbell. But if you're giving out honorary doctorates, brother, I'll take it.
Oh man, listen. If you almost haven't earned one, it's good enough for me. Okay.
That's right.
So that's awesome. Okay. And what did you do your master's at? Was it Tennessee Tech?
Tennessee Tech. I'm a master's in specialist at Tennessee Technological in Cookeville. And
Okay.
yeah.
And how long did you teach for before you got into superintendent?
I taught for 8 years. I was an assistant principal for 3 years, a principal for 10 years, and then superintendent for 2 years.
Okay. And you're about to make a huge you're about to make another transition, correct?
Yes, I am. When will this be broadcast?
It will be whenever you want it to be.
Got it. So, yeah, because right now I have not made a public announcement where I'm going,
Okay.
but I will be sending out a press release tomorrow. I will be going to another district, but I will be sending that press release out tomorrow, and it'll be on Facebook, so it'll be there. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's an exciting opportunity.
That's great. So the reason why I have Will on today is because Will posted 2 videos, and I will try to link them on my page. I'm not that smart to do that. Will's the one with the almost doctorate degree, not me. But Will walked around Minneapolis. So Will, talk about what you did.
Well, so we had to go to the airport on Sunday, and there's my wife and my oldest boy and myself, and I said, let's just stop in Minneapolis to see what does it look like, because I figured it's Sunday morning, and we know Sunday morning is probably the slowest day of the week because very few people go to church anymore. And so we decided to just walk away from where I live, about an hour away from where it all started, and just wanted to. I wanted my friends who are Facebook friends and then family in Philly just to see what it's like, because some people are afraid to go down there because they think it's so dangerous, and rightfully so if you look at the news. And so I just wanted to capture what we saw. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's back up a little bit. Will grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in South Jersey. We met in college, and then I think I stopped by your house once in the summer to drop off a T-shirt. We won a championship or something like that, and I had to bring it to you. I think you were living in Echelon at the time, weren't you?
That's right. So that's right. You dropped off my Thunder Duck shirt.
Yeah, that's it.
We were the champions, my friend. That's right. The Thunder Ducks. No,
yeah.
The Thunder Ducks.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That's right. And we won the championship. My kids don't believe it. I think I scored 2 points. But anyway, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there and question my playing time. But that's right. When you came in Jersey, I forgot all about that, Chris. The family that the guy who's like a dad even to me this day. That's where my address was, because after high school, he's the one who recommended me go to Word of Life. He's the one who, recommended it when I went to Temple, and he financially supported me. And to this day, he's like a dad to me. So awesome. I forgot all about that, brother.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So here's what I want to ask you, okay? Because I feel like in these conversations, I don't have anything to bring to the table, because I've not lived some of the experiences that you have probably lived. And Will and I have not talked about this. So Will, why don't you talk about some of the social inequality that you've had to deal with as an educated African-American man in this country?
Yeah. You know what, Chris? My first story, we go back to our days at Temple, brother. You and I were roommates, or almost across the hall, not roommates, but
across the
you
hall.
were across the hall from me with that blonde hair dude. What was his name?
Mm-hmm. Steve, I think.
Steve,
maybe?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when the first blatant show of discrimination was, remember back in the day, we had students who sold books for a certain, I won't mention a publishing company because I don't want anybody to think I'm throwing their name under the bus, but for a very popular Christian biblical publishing thing. And a lot of scholarships were making cash. And when I heard about it, I said, I want to try that, because I was broke, poor, and I needed a job. So I filled out the little postcard. They came to my dorm, and he never really opened his briefcase. But then he looked at me and said, well, I have to tell you, we don't typically hire Black people because they just don't sell as well as white people. And I remember thinking, oh, And I thought, well, I guess if a company wants to do that, I guess it's okay, which was absolutely not okay. But that was one of the first. And I think I was an RA, because I think I was anyway, I was it's like my second or third
Okay.
year at Temple. And
Okay.
so that was the first, just, saying we're not going to give you this gig because you're black. That was the first one. And there's been many
Wow.
others, even up until 2 years ago when my wife and I, when we moved up here to Minnesota, Eagle, Tennessee. Y'all better make sure you're out before the sun goes down, because y'all don't want to be in this type of area, insinuating you're black and you don't want to be here when the sun goes down. This is 2018, Chris, 2 years ago, right?
Wow.
Another thing I remember, when we moved to Flowery Branch, which is in Gainesville, outside of Gainesville, Georgia.
I used to live just below there in Buford.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, man, I did. Long story, but yeah. That's
Stop
where
following me,
Sonya's
brother.
from, that area. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, man.
That's okay. That's right, because I remember we like message each other and talk about getting our families together.
Yeah, we almost got together, and then I was on vacation visiting family, and we couldn't do it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I remember that. So my wife used to drive a Mercedes-Benz. She drove it for a couple of years. Then we started having babies, and we needed a minivan. So my wife got the upgrade to the minivan. And then I started driving the Benz, and it wasn't any fancy Mercedes, just some Benz we bought it because it was a nice price, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
First week, so I'm driving, I got pulled over, and I'm like, "That's dude, what am I getting pulled over for?" He's like, "Your windows are tinted." Now, can I say for certain that I got pulled over because I'm African American? No, but what I can say is my wife drove that car for 2 years, same route. We had the same places that we went, the same streets and so forth. She never got pulled over. About a week within me driving it, that happened to me. Then also another good friend of mine, who's another African-American who's doing really well. He owns his own insurance agency. He shared the same thing with me, that when he drove through that part of Flowery Branch, he's been pulled over 2 or 3 times, and they said because of tinted windows, And so, the fact is that is a law that most people don't even know about.
Right.
But I put everybody over. So that's another example. When my wife and I were dating, and I was waiting at a rest stop. You remember the Hutchisons, Martha Hutchison?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. They were on their way back from Memphis or somewhere, and they were going to pick me up. And so Bernadette, we were dating at the time, we were waiting at a rest stop for them to pick me up. And this car went by and said, he said something. I'm like, what? What'd you say? He's like, you're liable to get shot being out here with a white girl. And North Philly came out real fast. I'm like, come say that to my face. Which that was kind of stupid. Who knows what they had in the van?
Sure.
But so those are just some incidents that have happened to me, Chris.
Yeah.
And even to this day, even as an African, I'm doing all right. I got a good job as a superintendent. Most days I wear a suit. I even find myself that I've conditioned myself to being an African American and like accommodating. Like a couple of weeks ago, I'm walking home from work. We live about a mile away from my job, and in front of me was a white lady who I didn't recognize. But I'm tall. I'm 6'6", still got long legs, and when I walk, I get places. And I thought to myself, I don't know her and I don't want to encounter her. So I just crossed the street, just so that I wouldn't make her feel uncomfortable, or I wouldn't startle her, But then I thought, so as an African American, there's just things that unfortunately we do without even thinking about it, because we become conditioned, or we just want to try to avoid it or try to protect ourselves and others, or like going through Walmart and the people clutching their purses or double looking like I'm gonna steal their milk. I'm like, girl, I don't want your milk. I can buy my own. So those are just some of the examples. And and as an African American man, that's just that's what we deal with and live with. And even talking about my kids about how to respond if you're being pulled over or any type of interaction with authority. I tell them, you be confident, you be calm, you don't be cocky, and ask questions, and stuff like that. So they're just things that we just do without even thinking about it, just to protect ourselves,
So a follow-up question for you. Did you feel conditioned by that growing up in Philadelphia, or was that after Philadelphia, you think?
I think it was after Philly, because in Philly, where I grew up in North Philly, there were the African American or a lot of Puerto Ricans in Philly, where I grew up at, and not until I got in middle school, and I went to middle school from 7th to 12th grade, I went to Northeast, and my mom wanted me to go to a different school for better opportunities from out of, North Philly. And so that's when I started encountering white people. And one of my best friends, even to this day, we're still real good friends, was a guy, an Italian, from Northeast Philly, and even I remember as a high schooler, like we'd go to, like we experienced that, like we were like back in the day when I had, remember West Coast Video? In the video stores, we had to, get a membership to print videos. Our kids don't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
But we did a test. Like we went into one store and he filled out the application, almost immediately got the membership card. Then I go in, fill out the application, and they ask for all these different extra things, right? And then we would go to like, even like he had a job at this restaurant. We were hiring for a certain position, and he said, I went, talked to him about the job. We but they never gave me an application to allow me to apply for that job. We would go to and so we did that multiple times where we would go and test and see, does racism really exist? And we had multiple examples of the apparent discrimination, even going into like jewelry stores, asking, can I see that piece of jewelry? They let him see it. But like when I wanted to see it, this was very cautious. And,
Wow.
so even as teenagers, we weren't offended by it, but we kind of did it as kind of like let's see if this really does exist. And he could tell you to this day that these things I'm telling, we ain't making them up. But that's what we experienced. So yeah, we experienced it in Philly. And like I remember walking across the street and ladies would be at like the crosswalk where the crosswalk is and the stop sign, and you hear click, click. People lock the doors, So it was in Philly. But as a kid, you don't really know what's really going on, But when I look back on it, I would say yes, in Philadelphia as well. It's all over. Then Tennessee, we can talk about examples that happened in Tennessee, even as a college student, some of the opportunities that may have been denied, whatever. Can we blatantly say that it was all racism? I don't think we can. But knowing some of the things that we experienced, I believe some of them were. And I'll also say, Chris, that also there's a double-edged side to that, because I believe that I may have been afforded opportunities simply because of the fact I'm African American. Like when I graduated from Temple, before I graduated from Temple, I had 2 teaching offers when they found out I was an African American who had a teaching degree. They were just so thirsty for African Americans to work in the schools with the other kids. So I would say also throughout my career and life that's also been there.
Interesting. What okay, let me ask you another follow-up question. How have you taught your kids to deal with racism in the light that they may be, what's the word here, picked out, chosen out, have to deal with something? What do you tell your kids that maybe I haven't told my kids? I don't know. Obviously, we haven't had this discussion yet. But what are some things that you maybe had to tell your kids that maybe the average white guy has not had to tell their kids?
Right. I mean, and I was talking to my oldest boy about it the other day, and I think the difference between my kids and me is we've had very, very, Isaiah, don't hook your mom's face, buddy. I'm trying to hook this close to my wife's hair. You almost saw a tragedy live. But, their experiences are different, Chris. I don't know if my kids have ever experienced or have been aware of experiencing blatant racism. So their perspective is different. And like when I was asking my son, so what do you think about this stuff? And he's like, it really doesn't affect me. And I think what he meant by that was it's not affecting him like it's affecting other people. I'm trying to cover up the phone because boots coming out. I hope you can hear me okay.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
So I think he was saying that. But like my wife said a couple of weeks ago, she never imagined that her husband would have to talk to her kids about how to interact with police officers.
Right.
When she was a kid, she probably didn't grow up thinking she'd marry an African American man, but she did, And so it's that kind of conversation about, approaching it in a different way, and also letting them know that sometimes there are extra eyes on you simply because you are brown. So those are some of the things I tell them,
By the way, for those of you that are For those of you that are joining us a little late, Will is joining us live from the boat. The kids are fishing, so that is not a mistake. That's what they're doing. Yeah, there's the water, live from Minnesota. Okay, living that Minnesota life. By the way, what are they fishing for?
10,000 lakes up here.
What are they fishing for?
Boys, what are y'all fishing for?
Bass. Okay.
Bass, and he said in pike, and Will said anything. And look,
right.
Chris, make no mistake about it. I mean, I believe that there are more opportunities now than there ever has been for an African American. Because here you're talking to a dude who was born and raised in North Philadelphia in poverty, and a lot of crime, so much crime that you get used to hearing the police sirens, you get used to hearing the gunshots, you get used to seeing all this stuff. And from where I came from, where the Lord has brought me these 30-something years of school and working and so forth, the opportunities are there, but it just takes perseverance and it takes patience, because nothing comes tomorrow. It's day by day by day. And what I try to tell kids is the decisions you make between the ages of 16 and 30 will determine what you're doing between 31 and 101. Right. You know, so I can't complain about my situation. The Lord has flung open doors for me, and so again. I think that was a fish that jumped in the boat. But again, and look, and I'm from North Philly. I don't swim. I don't fish. I don't even like the water.
Oh, come on, Will. Come on, man.
We gotta. Is that a Rob Ross shirt you're wearing?
I try and paint every night, man. I'm working on it.
Is his name Rob Ross?
Bob Ross. Bob Ross.
Yeah, the painter dude.
Yeah. I try and paint every night. I try to. Yeah. So let me ask you one more follow-up question, Will.
That's cool.
Let me ask you one more follow-up question. What would you tell? So, you know, obviously we're having riots, we're having protests, and I'm all in favor of the protests. I have no problem with those. I don't like property being destroyed, obviously. I don't think anybody does, obviously. But what would you tell my white friends who say, what do we do? How do we help?
Listen more and say less, because I think that, and I think most people don't even know what to say.
Right.
You know, I think they want to tell people, black people, I'm not racist, I'm for you, I'm with you. But I would say listen more and say less, because sometimes the more that is said, it can be unintentionally misconstrued, So I would just say listen more, and then I'd just say be aware, and then, like my wife and I were talking, it got to start up in your house. And the conversation you're having at your dinner tables, and then when you're watching TV and a certain black people are portrayed on TV, or any race group where it's portrayed on TV, you got to speak the truth and speak what you know, not what just because you see, because we know the majority of African Americans who've been portrayed in entertainment and on TV have not been, the model citizens in most cases,
Right.
And so, letting our kids know letting your kids know this does not represent all black people, just like we wouldn't say Dylan Roof represents all white people. We wouldn't say that the other people who shot up schools or represent white people. That wouldn't be fair, even though 90+% of the people who shoot up schools are white, but black people, so that would be unfair for us to tell our kids to be afraid of white people. So I think it goes the same thing both ways,
Did you see the video of the encounter in Central Park?
The encounter, which one?
It was the lady who had the dog off of her leash, and the black guy asked to put the dog on the leash. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
When you get a chance, man, check that out. That happened before this, about a week or two before. But basically, she had her dog off in a spot where you're not allowed to have it off. This black guy came up, saw it, started videotaping it. Apparently, he's like a bird watcher. He's got like a degree from Harvard. She says on the video, if you don't get away and stop recording me, I'm going to call and tell him that a black man is trying to attack me.
Yeah.
Had he not recorded that, it'd have gone different.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, probably. Yep.
I mean, it's just that to me was the one that kind of tipped the iceberg, so to speak. No, I shouldn't say the one that tipped it, but that really raised my eyebrows.
And the thing is, Chris, stuff like that. I think the reason why I think one of the reasons why so many African Americans get so angry during this time is because stuff like that has been happening for a long time,
Right.
and people have just been getting away with that. You know,
Right.
oftentimes a crime happens. People say, you know, if they say it was someone brown, yep, someone brown probably did it. You know, and oftentimes in these crimes, the brown people weren't even involved. So yes, and I think with the proliferation of cell phones and video and so forth, we all say what?
And avoid microaggressions.
My wife just said avoid. You want to tell what that is?
Yeah, bring her on. Bring her on.
Let me put my wife on.
Okay.
She's way smarter than me. She talks way better than me, and she thinks better than I do. I just run my mouth sometimes. But she's talking about micro aggressions, and so because she's been studying this too lately, even before this all happened, because she's a teacher and she's been studying about cultural competency. So I'm gonna flip the count. I'm gonna give her the
bring on Bernadette. That sounds great. Hi, Bernadette.
Hello, hey. I just, as a white person, I know what it feels like to, you want to say, I'm not racist, but you don't want to just say, I'm not racist, because it makes people suspicious that you're racist. But I think white people sometimes do what they call a microaggression, which is not an outwardly like, you're stupid because you're black, but things like, oh, wow, I was surprised at how well he spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you surprised at how well Colin Powell speaks? Why are you surprised at how well Condoleezza Rice speaks? They're highly educated. Are you surprised that they speak clearly because they're black? Things like my son couldn't wear a braid on the basketball team in his hair. Boys don't wear it. That's a hairstyle that is it's a cultural hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Girls not being able to wear their hairstyle certain ways, or just asking, like, can I touch your hair? You don't say that to a 12-year-old boy. They don't want your hands in their hair. I mean, that's just weird. It's like, things like that. Oh, I'm so surprised at how well you write, or you've never eaten this, or you guys eat that, like it's a wrong thing. So like when Will and I got married almost 22 years ago, we just had to say a lot of times, it's different. It's not wrong, it's just different. And we have celebrated differences, but if you're going to look at a difference in order to criticize, or you know what I mean. So middle schoolers or who you're speaking to, just be careful of how you speak. And it's okay to say things like, I'm curious about your hair, or how do you do your hair, or things like that. Or I'm curious about this or that. Asking questions is okay, but making assumptions, and it's little tiny things. When you hear, so some research I was doing, when you hear those microaggressions day after day after day after day, it's the same effect as hearing a blatantly racial thing, especially if it comes from a leader, from a teacher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that. Yeah, very, very helpful. Yeah. All right,
she's way smarter than me.
Hey, listen, that was good stuff. We're going to end here, and here's why. Because I'm jealous of you sitting on that lake and talking to me. But in all seriousness, Will, let's do this again sometime soon.
Yes, sir.
It's been way too long since we've talked. I probably haven't talked to you since 94. Maybe 96 when my sister moved. I may have seen you. I don't remember, but it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing for sure, I think we need to have these tough conversations that are awkward, because the more we have them, the less awkward they'll be, and the more we will get rid of some of those issues that we've been talking about for the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, and I'll say Bernadette brought up some great points, because I didn't even think those things. People are surprised when black people are intelligent sounding. It's like, why are you surprised? Oh, you're surprised because of the social constructs of the black person being not as smart as others. And it's just stupidity and unfair. Because as Vodi Bachman said, have you ever listened to anything about Vodi Bachman?
I haven't. I know the name, but I haven't heard. No.
Yeah, he talks about race and says that our skin color is point something percentage of our total being. But everything else, we're similar. We got eyes, we have different features, about the eyes and the nose and the lips, but everything else is the same. We have hearts, everything is the same except the what is it called? Melatonin?
Is it melatonin or melanin?
melanin. Yeah, melanin. Whatever. It's Toby Mac said in melanin. It's because Toby Mac uses it in one of his song, you know, and song Color People. But it's not our fault that God said, I'm gonna give y'all a little bit more than the other folks. You know what I'm saying? But we're all similar shades, or some are darker than others. But yeah, so the skin color is that much of us. Right. But we all have a heart, we all have lungs, we all want the same in life. So anyway, but yeah, it's been a pleasure, my man.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for taking some time out. Enjoy that boat. Enjoy your precious family. And looking forward, I'll try to put a link in to let them watch some of the stuff that you posted, and then also listen for your announcement about your next step. Okay, so please give your family a hug from me. I appreciate you spending some time with me discussing some tough situations, but I think it's really important for us to have these talks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.